Coach Anderson said he thought the team's confidence was kind of shattered by the losing streak. Where do you think your all's confidence level is, and maybe how do you get it back up to where it was earlier in the season?
I mean, as you can see, our confidence level is pretty low right now because of the way we're playing. I mean, we're playing last game. We played with some fight, but we didn't play with that much fight that we needed. I mean, and our confidence level is going to get back up, but we just got to, come out and play the basketball that we played at the beginning of the year, and not this basketball that we've been playing.
You're still a young guy, but you're one of the older guys on the team. What sort of leadership role do you play to help the guys get their confidence back up?
I mean, I've become more of a vocal leader on the floor because, I used to be quiet all the time. I used to try to lead by example, but now I have to become more vocal because, some of the young guys, they kind of get down on themselves when they, make mistakes in the game. I mean, we can't just, feel bad for ourselves most of the time, especially during game time, because, we need all our attention on the game and all our attention on executing plays down the stretch. And on defense, it's such things like that. And, I just, go up to them, give them a motivational talk or something to try to get them back in the game, because we need every single one of us.
Ole Miss was doubling, even triple teaming you. What can you do, and what can your teammates do to get you open against defenses like that?
No, main thing I could have did, I could have just moved around more instead of trying to post up and have my back to the basket. I could have been setting screens, off the ball screens or ball screens for the guard. It's just that I was staying in one spot too much during the game, and I was crowding up the lane. And, other guys can do basically what they can do to get me open. They can screen for me. They can come off my screens, and I'll be open for that. Or, they can just move around and keep the paint, from being cluttered. And if I get the ball inside on the post, they can just cut to the basket, find the easy lane to the hoop, and just get an easy layup.
And how do you correct them?
It's just that we just got to protect, the inside. When teams get in on the inside, against us, it's automatic. And it's like we have no resistance on the inside, especially, with big guys like me. I'm supposed to be blocking shots and stuff. I need to step up my defense. For instance, like on ball, and especially ball screen defense, we need to, fix that also. There's a lot of things that we need to fix, and there's a lot of things that we know we need to fix, and it's going to be fixed. But it's just, it's a process.
Yeah, Daniel, I meant to ask you right before he did, but does it surprise you that you guys are giving up the most points per game in the league?
Welcome to Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. I told you I got the best producer, co-host in all the state, in the business. I'm not who I am without who's behind me. And I won't give a thank you as we were having technical issues, but solved quick. We're up and running. We came in with a little audio from Daniel Gafford. For those that missed Daniel's media availability that we play each and every week. Try to keep you up to date as Arkansas is hosting a big ball game, big rivalry. The Missouri Tigers come into Bud Walton Arena for an 8 o'clock tip-off. I think that will be on the SEC network. And it's a big game for both programs under Conzo Martin there at Missouri, and here Coach Anderson and that young ball club. They need it in the worst way. But let's get our list ready today. Coming up at 1:15, Blake Topmeyer of the Tennessean. A lot going on in Tennessee football. New additions in the coaching staff. We're going to talk to Blake about that, as well as the good vibe that's taking place with Rick Barnes and his men's #1 ranked SEC basketball club, as well as what's the temperature around the women's program in the basketball world. And then at 1:30, Fastest 40 talk, more of it with our good buddy Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. He's going to come on, and we'll talk keys to tonight's ball game versus the Mizzou Tigers and Razorbacks of Arkansas. But I want to bring in my co-host real quick, Demetrius. How's it going, my man, on a Hump Day Wednesday?
It's going pretty good. I'm really glad for the day. I got the day off from FedEx, so I'm really excited to really see what I can do with my day off.
See, we got more words out of him today. He's getting more and more words on Hump Day. I'm kind of liking this vibe, but I'm really liking the vibe that we have coming up. The show's going to be real special, real quick. I want to give a thank you to our sponsors, as it would not be possible without you all. Lindsay & Associates, with an office location in Fayetteville and an office location also too in Rogers. The Baymont Hotel, located at 735 South Shiloh Drive, and Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall. But we're going to get away and start this thing off here on OTH with Blake Topmeyer of the Tennessean. But we want to hear what Coach Barnes has to say about being the #1 team in the country. Here's Coach Barnes from UT. And then after that, Blake Topmeyer is on the hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479.
I don't think anything about it. I mean, I think that we're going to be in a lot of games like this, whether we're ranked 1, 21, or 41. I just think this league's like that everybody's fighting, and right now you're getting into the middle of the conference season, and you know, these guys have worked hard. Is it something new to them? Yeah, it's something new, but we go back, and the guys that are playing right now, they built this thing, okay? They built it, and to be what we want to be, you have to learn to deal with that. And is it nice to be ranked? Of course, because you know the attention that comes to your program, it filters down to every aspect of your program. Do you have to deal with it, handle it? Yes. And how you do that is by staying focused on what's at hand, and that's playing basketball. You can't let the outside noise coming from whoever, family, whatever. You got to. That's where you find out just how close you are as a team, and you don't come unraveled. You just stay focused on the task at hand, and that's trying to win another basketball game.
So, John, then Mike.
Rick, do you feel even more fortunate about the victory when you look at the stat sheet and see that Alabama missed 10 of 18 free throws?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, you look at that. I mean, yeah, we're again. I mean, I can tell you a lot of different ways they outplayed us definitely second half. They did, and then you look at the fact they got to the free throw line. You know, we were 3 for 12, but I can also say, you know, we missed some shots that we normally make. You know, that happens. That's part of the game, just like missing free throws. But it's not a game of perfect. It's never going to be. And again, I thought both teams played really, really hard, and we were again fortunate to get it done.
How much do you take away?
Welcome back to our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, as we come to you here on KDSJ 479, and we like to talk a lot of SEC. And there's a lot going on in Rocky Top. So we'll come in with Knoxville News Centennials, Blake Topmeyer. Blake, welcome to the Hill, my man.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Pat.
Blake, let's talk a lot about what's going on in Rocky Top. You know, Pruitt hires Jim Chaney away from the Georgia Bulldogs and brings home one of, Rocky Top's own. T. Martin has been hired to, not yet given a position on the staff, but, talk about what's going on in Rocky Top where it's concerned football.
Yeah, I think it's been a pretty good offseason for Tennessee. The early signing period went well for them, and then had to replace their offensive coordinator, as you mentioned, and Tyson Helton, who had that job for 1 year, left to become Western Kentucky's head coach. And I think it was a good chance for Jeremy Pruitt to hit the reset button. I think Tyson Helton's going to do a nice job as a head coach at Western Kentucky. I think he's head coaching material. That being said, I don't think it was a perfect marriage for Tyson Helton and in Tennessee. I think it was a good opportunity for all parties concerned, for Helton to go to Western Kentucky and for Pruitt to get a fresh chance to start over in that hire. And in making Jim Chaney, I think that's a really, really solid hire. Chaney's a guy that has been here before, was the offensive coordinator under Lane Kiffin and Derek Dooley. Of course, Tennessee wasn't very successful in those years, but its offenses often weren't the problem. And Chaney's proven, he's been a good offensive coordinator at Georgia. He did it at Purdue. He did it at Arkansas. This is a guy that knows the SEC, knows how to run a pro-style offense, which I think is what Jeremy Pruitt wants. And I really just think it was a solid hire. And then adding a guy like T. Martin, that's obviously very popular with the fan base, given the fact of what T did 20 years ago here as a quarterback. But this hire is more than just about nostalgia, because T. Martin has proven himself throughout the course of his career to be a really good recruiter.
Right.
Say what you will about his time as an offensive coordinator at USC. There were some ups and downs while he coordinated that offense, but I don't think there's any question that he did a really nice job recruiting at USC. You can see that by some of the guys he landed there, and so I think for that reason, it was a good addition for Jeremy Pruitt's staff.
Blake, give me your assessment of year one of Jeremy Pruitt, in all aspects of the program, and where do you see, this program at going into year two? What's the win level expectation for Pruitt and those guys?
Well, I think they need to get to a bowl game in year two. I would call year one a mild disappointment with a couple highlights. I mean, obviously the victory on the road at Auburn was a nice highlight win for them, and then they beat a really good Kentucky team at Neyland Stadium in November, and so in those two games it looked like Tennessee made some strides this year, but overall they finished 5-7. They got steamrolled, not only by some of the best in the SEC, being Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, but they also got steamrolled by Vanderbilt and Missouri to end the season. So that was really a bad look and a bad way to end it. That being said, I still think there's a lot of positivity around Jeremy Pruitt. People certainly weren't overwhelmingly discouraged by year one. I think they were disappointed in the result, the fact that they didn't make a bowl. But I certainly don't think anyone's closing the book on Pruitt. And most of the offense returns next season. I think that the coaching staff's in a little better position. And frankly, the schedule lightens up next year. They got 8 home games and only 4 road games next season. So certainly a bowl game should be within reach next year. I'd say this is a team that can probably win 6 or 7 games next season, which 6 and 7 win seasons, as you know, normally not celebrated in Tennessee. But when coming off of back-to-back losing years, I think that's the progress that a lot of folks need to see.
Talking with Blake Topmeyer of the Knoxville News Centennial, covers the Tennessee Vols here for us on the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. Blake, I want to talk to you even more. You made a key word about the hire with T. Martin, all about recruiting. Jeremy Pruitt's a renowned recruiter, known throughout the SEC. How has the recruiting changed, with Jeremy's class, from what you've seen, the previous years there at Tennessee?
Butch Jones did a pretty good job recruiting while at Tennessee. They were always highly ranked in the classes. And the problem with that coaching staff and Butch Jones' tenure was too often that high-rated talent didn't develop or live up to its potential. Some guys did, but too many guys didn't. And so that's what I'll be curious to see if Pruitt and the staff can do is identify the right kind of talent and develop them. But there's no question he's made some big gains in certain areas. They're recruiting Georgia particularly well. You look at what they did in the early signing period. Georgia was the state that got the most guys from, and it wasn't just the leftovers from Georgia either. They got Wanye Morris, a 5-star offensive tackle from the state of Georgia, who is an early enrollee and may step in and contribute immediately for this team. And so I think that's a good sign that they're winning some battles in the state of Georgia. Which isn't surprising. Pruitt is from Alabama, so he's got roots in the Southeast. He was Georgia's defensive coordinator for a couple seasons, so he's got ties there. The whole coaching staff, for the most part, has deep ties to the South. And so, they're going in and mixing it up in some of these southern states that not only are you going against the in-state teams for talent, but you're going up against everybody. I mean, everybody's coming into states like Georgia, Florida, Alabama for talent. And so it's been a really good recruiting class so far for Tennessee. I don't know. I think it can still get a notch better. It can get to great. Darnell Wright is a 5-star offensive tackle who's uncommitted from the state of West Virginia. Tennessee's in the running for him. If they would add him in the February signing period, I think you could go ahead and call it a great recruiting class, and then it becomes about developing that talent.
more into the recruiting, from my vantage point, you look at Jeremy Pruitt there at Tennessee in year one. He's able to recruit well. Jimbo Fisher, quite well at Texas A&M, and Chad Morris, even through a 2-10 season, Blake, he was able to get into the top 20. Ole Miss has done quite well. All these teams in the early signing period in the SEC pretty much ended up in the top 20. I believe 11 of the 14 teams. When you look at the way these programs are recruiting at such a high level, it's obvious, coaches that can recruit are going throughout the conference, different schools. How much longer, in your opinion, will we truly see parity start to, rear its head in the SEC, which is already grueling, but how far out are we, Blake, in your opinion?
As soon as Nick Saban retires, I think we'll see it. I think that's the one thing kind of separating there from being parity, because I would say parity already exists within the SEC among about 13 schools. It's just one school that's sort of separated itself from the pack.
Good point.
And so I really think it's already there, and I think the gap has closed almost entirely, but if not entirely, it's closed an awful lot between the East and the West. There were several years there where there was no question that the West was the dominant division. It wasn't close. You had teams that were third and fourth in the West that on any given year may have been better than the best team in the East. I don't think that's the case anymore, except for Alabama. Alabama's better than everybody until someone can change that, and it might be until Saban retires. But you look elsewhere, you look at Georgia, Florida, Kentucky this year. I mean, they were as good as anybody in the West other than Alabama. And so I think the gap has closed. I think there is a lot of parity, but Alabama is still the team kind of disproving that and has separated itself. And frankly, over the last 4 or 5 years, Clemson's done the same thing in the ACC, and we're really getting to the point where you got 2 or 3 or 4 programs that are starting to kind of pull away from the rest of college football. But there is parity, but it's like you got these 2 or 3 schools that have sort of elevated themselves above that.
Flipping over to the other side, we talk about parity. You kind of saw this on the basketball side several years ago. I remember several years ago, Tennessee coming in here to Bud Walton under Rick Barnes with a very young but mature team that you saw would be in a few years what they are. The number 1 ranked team. This is the same team, Blake, that was picked 13th in the SEC by multiple media outlets, coaches last year. Talk about the vibe there on campus for the men's program, and then also, too, the women's program. Seems like they're on different spectrums when you talk Tennessee basketball, don't you think?
You're right. It's a study in contrast. I mean, Tennessee men's basketball is about as its highest level it's ever been. Of course, it's been number 1 before. Didn't last long, but it has had this level of success, but it didn't last, and so now you have last season's success, and they're growing on it this year, and it's just sort of the perfect recipe that's kind of brewing for the Tennessee men right now. You got a really good coach, veteran coach that's done it multiple places. I think he'd been kind of written off there when he left Texas, but this is a guy that's been a lifelong winner. And then you look at his roster, and it's so deep, and there's so many veterans on this team. I mean, you got guys like Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield are obviously the headliners, but you just run down the list with Jordan Bone, Jordan Bowden, Lamonte Turner. Like, these are veterans and guys that on any given night can drop 20 points.
Right.
I mean, on Tennessee's team, they got 5 guys that on any given night can drop 20 on you. There's not a lot of teams in college basketball that can do that. And beyond that, there's certainly not a lot of teams with guys that can do that who are also juniors and seniors. College basketball is becoming such a sport dominated by freshmen. Tennessee's the exception to that. They're not playing freshmen. They're not playing a lot of sophomores. These are juniors and seniors who have developed under Rick Barnes throughout his tenure here, and I think that's a big reason why they're thriving. Now, it will be a little bit harder for Tennessee to reload than, say, like a Duke or a Kansas or one of these schools or Kentucky. The schools that get all the McDonald's All-Americans year after year after year, and they kind of pump through them. I think Tennessee, you could see take a step back when they lose some of these juniors and seniors. But I don't think, as long as Rick Barnes is here, I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff. I think you're going to continue to see him develop talent. I think he's going to coach guys that are willing to stay in the program for 3-4 years. And I think Tennessee is going to be a factor in SEC men's basketball for many years to come, because they just have a lot working in their favor when you look at their coach, when you look at the arena, when you look at the way basketball is supported in Tennessee. I think Tennessee's not going away. And then with the women, you mentioned, Pat, I mean, that's boy, it's starting to get a little hot in Knoxville with Holly Warlick, the coach and longtime assistant for Pat Summitt, and it's disappointing to see the women here on a 5-game losing streak and just not playing the way that people have come to expect from the Lady Vols.
Well, Blake, it's always love having you on. We'll talk real soon as spring football is about to be up on us throughout the SEC. But as always, my man, thanks for taking time out here on OTH.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Pat.
That was Blake Topmeyer of the Knoxville News Centennial. I'm sorry, in the opening I said he was from Tennessee, and I'm sorry, no, Blake writes for the Knoxville News Centennial there in Knoxville, Tennessee, covers all Vols information for us here on OTH. But if you didn't get a chance to hear Coach Mike Anderson, we played his availability that we have on Mondays to preview this upcoming Mizzou game, and he talked a little bit about Ole Miss. Following the Mike presser, we're going to come back and talk with Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette a little fast as 40 and get his keys for tonight's big matchup versus the Missouri Tigers. Here's Coach A, and Scotty Borderland will be up following him. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDS.
Start that we want to, but at the same time, there's a lot of basketball to be played, and I really believe this team will continue to get better. Playing against a Mizzou team that's probably is trying to get wins just like we are, and we've got to be able to defend the home court. They won a big game at A&M, and of course with Kunzo's team, they're going to come in, they're going to get after you defensively and rebound the basketball with Tillman inside. The Geist kid is playing better, whereas our team, we need to get into we need to play a total good game. That's what I'm looking for our guys. I think we've been trying to win just with offense, and you can't just win with offense in our league. It's got to be a defensive effort as well. And so we've got to continue to get better in a lot of different areas. I think taking care of the basketball is going to be one of them. We've got to take care of the basketball. We've got to be able to defend. We talked about getting off to a good start, and we started the game off right off the game with the turnover, and you can't do that, especially on the road. But I look for our guys to come out and play with a much greater sense of urgency, playing against a Mizzou team that, obviously they border. It's a border game where the states touch, so it's going to be a big game for us and a big game for them as well.
Mike Daniels just in here, and he was pretty humble and took a lot of blame for the loss the other day, said he needs to play better. What are you seeing from Daniel, and what kind of response do you expect from him?
Well, what you're seeing, and that's the thing with the inexperienced team, is that Daniel's getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so. I mean, he's played so well. And as that attention, 2 and 3 people around, our spacing hasn't been the greatest. If our spacing is good enough, then you're going to see those guys kind of be the recipients of some good passes for him. But they're coming at him. They're saying, hey, them other guys are going to have to beat you. And so our other guys are going to have to step up and make shots and finish off plays and take care of the basketball. I think he's giving us everything he can. But that's what happens. Like I said, when you go from not being on the scouting report to the top of the scouting report. And so we know he can play a lot better. We had too many turnovers, I thought, Bob. And then on that, the momentum plays. We cut the ball game to a 40, I think it was 49-43. And we had the ball a couple of times. Well, we got to come down, and now we got to execute. Because I didn't think they had an answer for Dan if we continue to have patience and get the ball in. But I thought we sped up and played too fast. And then, of course, Ole Miss took advantage of that. But I think with Dan, we got to continue to he's got to be the centerpiece. He's got to be able to touch the ball, even if he don't shoot it. I think he's a willing passer. He's not a black hole. And those other guys got to be able to play off of him. And that, to me, is the execution part that we've got to get better at.
Caney in both starts doesn't play nearly as well as off the bench. What do you do with that other forward spot?
Well, we just got to keep trying it. Keep trying it. You know, whether it be him or even Gabe. We saw Gabe come in the second half, and I thought Gabe gave us an attacking forward. I thought he was really active, trying to get the ball inside to Daniel on the glass. We just got to keep brothering along, and I think with those guys.
Yeah, like you said, you guys have been trying to win with just offense, and Daniel said the defense has not been good. They've just kind of been giving baskets. How do you guys fix that, and are you confident you can fix it?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can fix it. I think it's a matter of getting all the guys on the same page. You got to talk on defense. Our defense is geared toward putting pressure on people, and I think we've been just letting people run the offense. I really, really have. I think we kind of been playing on our heels, and but we've got to be a little bit more aggressive, and you know we got to be able to be in rotation. You know, some things penetration is gonna take place. We got to be able to fix it. I mean, in the first half, they got like maybe 3 or 4 screen rows, and so the offside help. You know, where guys are hugging the mans on the offside. That's got to be a lot better, and we've been better throughout the year. So again, I just think it's a wake up call for our guys, because our defense again is what we got to hang our hats on, and then as your defense picks up, then I think.
Welcome back. It's our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our Hump Day edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, live here on KDSJ. We come to you each and every day, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 2 p.m. But it's time to talk a little Fastest 40, and we catch up each and every week with the guy that is our go-to when it's Fastest 40, Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Scotty, welcome back, my man.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me again.
Keys to Arkansas's keys. They're big matchup tonight, Scotty. I mean, this is huge versus the Missouri Tigers, a school that's starting to become a rival with this program. What are some things Arkansas has to do to get off this snide, this 4-game losing skid that they've been on?
Well, I think specifically tonight, I think the 3-point line is going to be pretty big. I think in SEC games only, Missouri's shooting about 39% from 3, which is about third in the league. So that's pretty solid. They got a sophomore that transferred, I believe, from Illinois, who's shooting about 48% in conference play. I mean, he doesn't have just a ton of attempts. I think it's just on 25 attempts, but he's almost hitting half of those. So you got to be aware of him. Jordan Geist is, I think is Missouri's starting point guard. He's another guy that'll get his threes up. He hit 4 out of 5 at Texas A&M the other day when they just kind of took Texas A&M behind the woodshed in their own arena last weekend. That was a big win for them. Defending the 3-point line is going to be pretty big, and we got to see if Arkansas can kind of get connected defensively too. I think Arkansas is shooting like 28 or 29% from 3, which is about the worst 3-point shooting team Mike's had. I mean, I know it's still early, you can turn things around, but you gotta get some production from Mason and Isaiah and try to work inside out and see if that works. And always you got to take care of the ball.
The thing that I have come to finalize is watching that Ole Miss game Saturday. You know, it's Ole Miss and went on their run, and I go back to LSU, Florida, Tennessee. They all went on runs, Scotty. You know, Arkansas, with having Daniel Gafford, you know, your future lottery pick, 6'10", 6'11", big man, you would think Arkansas would use him as the run stopper. You know, every program, great program, has that run stopper, and I feel like Daniel could be this for this program. Is it a simple fact they're so young, they're still having trouble realizing a good shot from a great shot right about this time?
Yeah, I think so, and I think there's a tendency, like when things aren't going well, to maybe become a little bit independent in what you do, especially so with young guards. And I don't want to say that there's anything going on with those guards, but sometimes I think there could be a little bit of distrust, or maybe ball handlers don't trust a guy to knock a shot down, so maybe he doesn't pass it to him. I think there's just, you got to trust who you're playing with, especially when things get hard. That's when things get tough. Like, I think, like you said, Gafford can be kind of a run stopper, but I don't think Arkansas really got it to him like a traditional post-up situation until they got down 9-2 on Saturday, and that's got to happen earlier. That's got to happen early. You got to utilize the only pro in your roster just more so, not even just as a run stopper. But you got to feed him. And, you got to work through him. Everything teams do defensively is pretty much centered around him. So there's got to be some trust, and you got to utilize your best player better.
Scotty, how surprised are you that this team defensively has went the total opposite than the way they started out? I mean, this was a defense that was nationally talked about, and then all of a sudden conference play hits, and you're giving up the most points in the conference, over 90 points a game. What do you attribute that to, with them being in such a defensive slump? Not only is it offensive, but what are some of the factors that you think's causing so many defensive breakdowns?
I think one of the things is just communication, like just the same way when Arkansas struggles on offense, where you're maybe not trusting a guy. It's like you have to communicate with your teammates. Like if there's a pick and roll, you have to understand like where the backline help is, where the help side, like you got to get some help side defenders to maybe leave their man and rotate over. Rotations have to be better. Another thing is too, and I'm not one to make excuses for a 4-game losing streak, but 3 of the teams that Arkansas's lost to in that span are, I think, top 3 in the league in offensive efficiency, according to Ken Palm. So they're playing some pretty good offensive teams, like Tennessee. Tennessee's just, they've got so many weapons. Ole Miss has, their guard play this year is the real deal. And LSU, Tremont Waters is one of the best guards in the league, and Naz Reid's pretty solid too. So they've played some pretty good offensive teams. I think those teams have just hit Arkansas in the mouth pretty early and just gotten them down and out pretty fast.
You talk about the bench. It's going to be big in tonight's ball game, Scotty. Coach Anderson talks about it all the time. But talk about how big Gabe Osaborn and Reggie Chaney will be. They're going to have to take on, the Jeremiah Tillman. Seems like Perrier has been there 100 years for the Missouri Tigers. But these are seasoned guys that's played a lot of basketball in the SEC. Arkansas is a real young team at that 4 spot. So how big is and how key is the 4 spot in tonight's ball game?
It's pretty big. I mean, it's pretty big every game. Gabe, I think, was kind of the outside of Keyshawn, Gabe was kind of stole the show, I guess, offensively for Arkansas at Ole Miss. He had like a career high 13, which I wasn't expecting at all. But he was ultra aggressive, like he normally is. His usage rate just skyrocketing as we speak. But that 4 spot's just like you're kind of still in limbo a little bit. And Mike said when we talked to him earlier in the week that they're kind of keep going with the brother-in-law thing at the 4. Just whoever's hot. Like if Reggie's going good, then Reggie's going to play 25 minutes. If Gabe is playing good, he's going to play 26 minutes like he did against Ole Miss. Want to get something from Adrio too. I've been kind of waiting on a game where Adrio just kind of like lets his frustrations out and goes out and has a big game, either scoring the ball or rebounding, blocking shots, whatever he can do. It's going to be big for sure. And I looked up today, Jeremiah, you mentioned Jeremiah Tillman. He's kind of a big factor for Missouri. He's been he got into some foul trouble. I think he fouled out in Missouri's first 2 games in conference play. They're 8-1 or 9. I think they're 8-1 when he scores 10+ points. So if Arkansas can find a way to limit him a little bit, I think and defend the 3-point line, you got to do that. I think they'll be in pretty good shape.
Well, Scotty, as always, love having you on, and I have a feeling DG10 is really going to come back and play with a vengeance tonight as he understands Tillman, and I think he's going to add energy not only to them, Scotty, but to that entire GM. I have a really good feeling, Daniel, because based on what I saw Monday in that press conference, this is a guy that's really not too happy about the way things are turned out. Going to have something to do about it. But as always, love having you on, and thanks for taking time out on the hill, Scotty.
Yeah, you bet. I'll see you guys tonight.
Well, Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. We're going to step away and get a real quick break. We had a chance to catch up with University of Kentucky's John Calipari from last night's post-Mississippi State victory as they were able to knock off a top-ranked team. They're playing pretty good, and here's what Coach Cal had to say.
every game we play, there's emotion to it. So it's a different deal for this program. Because whether it's at Auburn or at Vanderbilt, or they're all sold out and it's a huge game. And so we need to be more steady in how we do this. And we are. I said the Kansas game is really, really big because it's the next game. I mean, we weren't worried about Kansas. I've not watched one thing on Kansas. I watched a little bit of maybe Iowa State. I think I watched maybe 4 minutes of them live TV. So I can't tell you one thing about how they play. This was about beating a top 20 team, a team that's played well all year, a team that makes 9 threes per game, missed some shots today, thank goodness. And then they rebound like crazy. They're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. They missed a lot of shots that they normally make.
On the left, Jerry.
John, Ben Howland and one of his players was talking about your defense and how it sped them up, got them out of their rhythm. What did you think of your defense tonight?
I thought Ashton, when you're on the ball playing like he plays, it bleeds into everybody else. If your guy at the point is getting beat on the dribble and can't control the guy a little bit, you're in jeopardy. That's why when we recruit point guards, if we have a guy, I tell him, I mean, how are we going to start our defense if he can't stay in front of the ball? Stats don't matter to me. Can he do it? Last year we had Shea did it, and now Ashton does it. I'll tell you who else did it. He was sick today. We don't know if he had the flu or a virus, was Jamal Baker. So when I went back to him, I said, Coach, I can't feel my legs right now. So that's why I didn't go back to him in the second half. But he's another one that's really, and the guy that's really improved is Tyler. Tyler went from not being able to stay in front of anybody to, like, he's not bad. Now, he leaves his feet at times, but he's not bad. How about EJ today? Aren't we all waiting for him to go do that? You could say, well, if you just play him, well, if the other kid's really playing well, it's hard. But today, we had a stretch where our two bigs, like, we're going through the motions, couldn't get open, couldn't fight. Okay, bye, you're out. We'll play these two. Now you become the backups to them. And I told those two, play as many minutes as you can play. When you need a break, let me know. We'll sub the guy off the bench, and when you want to go back in, you go back in. Nick was good again today. Thought Nick did some good things. And I like the fact that, Travis had 12 rebounds, but still, he's missing some baskets he got to make.
You kind of beat me to the punch here on EJ, but how significant, if it was it for him to see a jump shot go down? I mean, obviously he's a good shooter. It just doesn't look like it so far. You talked about Tyler early in the season. Yeah. He can shoot, he just got to see something go down.
Yeah, and I told him it's the first one he made all year. It's pretty good that you made one finally. But no, I keep telling him he's going to break through and everybody's going to say, oh my gosh, who is this guy? I mean, did you see him block that shot? It changed the game. If we had another big guy in and he just acted like, well, it's not my man, and didn't block that shot, and that ball goes in, we could have lost the game. That changed the game. Those kind of plays, one, they make it so guards won't drive in there, but two, they change the game because you get breakouts down the other end. And he and Nick are able to do that for us. PJ had some blocks today. PJ played 4 blocks, 21 points, and 6 rebounds, and I still think he played without that motor parts of the game, and that's what was making.
Welcome back. It's our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. We brought you audio from John Calipari, head coach of the University of Kentucky Wildcats, as they had a big win over the Mississippi State Bulldogs last night. This is a team, Demetrius, when I initially saw them earlier this year, they didn't look too good, but as always, being the Calipari and Kentucky teams that it is, you knew they were going to get better and better and better, and they are playing some of the better basketball in the SEC. They'll be heading to Kansas to take on the Kansas Jayhawks this weekend, which is a big nationally televised game in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. But Demetrius, I want to ask, there's a question as we're going to close out today's show. But a topic I'm still, interested in is today it came out Dante Walker out of Cedar Grove, Georgia, decommitted from the University of Arkansas. Ironically, the same day that Coach John Scott was named the defensive line coach there at South Carolina, Dante, ironically, was a big-time recruit of John Scott. So when you hear, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, kids go to school for the guys that are recruiting them, the coaches. They shouldn't do that. They should go for the school. Talk about your honest opinion on that. I think it's more so kids going to school due to the relationships that they build with these particular coaches and their families.
I definitely have to agree. You want to go somewhere, especially your position coach. You definitely want to know that you guys have a good relationship and that you're on really his good side, because he's the one next to the head coach that decides if you're getting that playing time or not. So, of course, you want to go somewhere where you feel like you're valued and you feel like the coach really wants you there.
I also think, I think half of that had to do with a statement I made earlier in the week. I think Dante's really looking for a minority coach to be coached by, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. That's just the world we live in. Sometimes you just got to be honest and say what you feel. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but kids nowadays, they grew up in a different world. I know a lot of kids that's just what they prefer. A lot of families, that's what they prefer. But, I think it's going to be good for Dante. I don't think that's in any way a bad vibe toward the recruiting class that Coach Chad Morris has put together. And kids, it's their right to go where they feel they're going to be comfortable. It's just like a pair of shoes, Demetrius. You only wear shoes that are comfortable. You don't put on stuff that you're not comfortable with. If so, you go back, exchange them, get a new pair. That's basically what it is when picking a school and picking the family away from your family. I think that's what this all boils down to. But that's going to wrap up today's show, our Wednesday edition. I want to give a thank you to our guest, Blake Topmeyer of the Knoxville News Centennial, for coming on and giving us an update of what's happening up in Rocky Top. You did quite a good job. We like talking to Blake. Also, too, once again, that fastest 40 talk from our good buddy of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Scotty Borderland. Talk game keys in Arkansas's big SEC contest.